She will never tell you this directly, but the moment you stopped needing her approval, something fundamental shifted in how she perceived you. The mental trick that makes a woman sexually attracted to you has nothing to do with what you say or how you behave on the surface. It exists entirely in your mind, invisible to her conscious awareness, yet broadcasting through every micro-expression and energy shift in your presence. You have probably experienced the opposite. You met someone who seemed interested. The conversation flowed. She laughed at your jokes. You exchanged numbers. Everything pointed toward connection. So you did what felt natural. You texted her. You made plans. You showed interest. You demonstrated that you valued her. And then, slowly or suddenly, you watched her enthusiasm drain away like water through your fingers. This confusion runs deep for most men. You followed the advice. You communicated. You were attentive. You made your interest clear. Yet somehow, the very actions intended to build attraction seemed to destroy it instead. You found yourself in an anxiety loop, checking your phone, analyzing her response time, adjusting your behavior based on her signals, trying to recalibrate and find the right balance. The more you tried, the worse it became. Here is what nobody explains clearly. Attraction in women does not respond to your effort or investment the way logic suggests it should. It responds to your internal state. Specifically, it responds to whether you need her validation or whether you exist in a state of emotional self-sufficiency. This is not a tactic you perform. It is a genuine psychological shift that occurs within you. When this shift happens, when you truly stop needing her attraction to feel complete, you inadvertently trigger the deepest form of desire she can experience. The ancient Stoics understood something that modern dating advice consistently misses. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events, and that realizing this brings strength. He was describing the foundation of masculine frame. The mental trick is not a trick at all. It is the cultivation of genuine outcome independence. It is building a life so full, a sense of self so secure, that whether she responds positively or disappears entirely makes no material difference to your internal state. Women are biologically wired to assess male value through observation rather than declaration. When you actively try to demonstrate your worth, you reveal insecurity about that worth. When you exist in calm certainty of your value, requiring no external validation, you trigger her instinct to qualify herself to you rather than the reverse. This is not manipulation. This is alignment with how attraction actually functions beneath the layer of social conditioning. Think about someone you know who went through this exact pattern. He started seeing a woman he met through mutual friends. The initial dates went well. She seemed engaged and responsive. He felt genuine connection forming, so he increased his investment. More texts, more availability, more emotional openness about his feelings. Within weeks, her responses became shorter. Her availability decreased. The warmth vanished. He felt confused and hurt. He had done everything the conventional wisdom suggested. He had communicated his interest clearly. He had been emotionally available. He had demonstrated commitment potential. What he did not understand was that each action, though well-intentioned, communicated a deeper message. It communicated that her validation mattered more to him than his own internal stability. It communicated that he was monitoring her responses and adjusting his behavior accordingly. It communicated that his emotional state depended on her reciprocation. These are not attractive qualities in a man, regardless of what people say they want in surveys or conversations. Attraction responds to what it perceives, not what it claims to prefer. The woman in this scenario did not consciously decide to lose interest. She experienced a natural decrease in attraction as his neediness became apparent. When a man needs her validation, he positions himself below her in the implicit hierarchy of value. She may genuinely like him as a person. She may appreciate his kindness and effort. But sexual attraction operates on different circuitry. It responds to perceived status, challenge, and scarcity. When you make yourself abundantly available and emotionally dependent on her responses, you eliminate all three. Here is the first key insight. Female attraction is triggered by emotional self-containment. This does not mean coldness or emotional unavailability in the sense of being unable to connect. It means that your emotional stability originates from within, rather than depending on her behavior. When you can be warm and engaging while simultaneously being completely unaffected by whether she reciprocates, you create a psychological tension that registers as attractive. Biologically, this connects to pre-selection. If you exist in a state of outcome independence, it signals that other women find you valuable. You are not desperate for her, specifically because you have options and internal security. She does not need to know about other women explicitly. She perceives your energy. The man who needs her, validation broadcasts neediness through 1,000 tiny signals. The way he responds too quickly to texts. The way his mood shifts based on her warmth or distance. The way he seeks reassurance through questions and over-communication. The man who genuinely does not need her, validation moves through the world differently. His texting patterns reflect his actual schedule and priorities rather than her response time. His mood remains stable regardless of whether she is warm or cold on a given day. He asks fewer questions seeking reassurance because he does not require it. This is not a performance. This is what naturally emerges when you have built a life that fulfills you independent of any single person's participation in it. The second key insight addresses a critical distinction. There is a difference between strategic detachment and authentic outcome independence. Strategic detachment is a manipulation tactic. It involves pretending not to care while actually caring deeply, using calculated distance to trigger her pursuit. This sometimes works in the short term, but it is exhausting to maintain and ultimately fails because the underlying neediness eventually surfaces. Authentic outcome independence is different. It is a genuine psychological state where you truly do not require her attraction for your sense of self-worth. You prefer connection if it flows naturally. You enjoy her company when it happens, but your internal stability does not depend on it. This cannot be faked long-term. Women are exceptionally skilled at detecting incongruence between what a man projects and what he actually feels. The Stoic philosophers practiced this distinction carefully. They did not advocate emotional suppression or pretending not to desire things. They advocated recognizing what you can control versus what you cannot. You cannot control her attraction. You cannot control her choices. You cannot control her interest level. Trying to control these things through your behavior creates the anxiety and neediness that repels her. What you can control is your own development, your own emotional state, your own life trajectory. When you shift your focus entirely to what you control, when you build a life so compelling that her presence enhances it but her absence does not diminish it, you inadvertently become the kind of man women find irresistible. This is the paradox at the heart of attraction. You become most attractive when her attraction matters least to you. Not because you have convinced yourself not to care, but because you genuinely have more important priorities. Consider another scenario. A man went through a difficult breakup after a relationship of several years. The woman he loved decided she wanted something different. He felt devastated initially, but rather than chase or try to convince her, he made a decision. He would focus entirely on himself for 6 months. No dating, no seeking validation. Just building the life he wanted regardless of relationship status. He joined a gym and trained consistently. He pursued a professional certification he had postponed. He reconnected with friends he had neglected. He traveled alone to places he wanted to see. He read books that challenged him. He built routines that brought him satisfaction. This was not a strategy to win her back. It was a genuine investment in himself. Because he realized he had been outsourcing his happiness to the relationship. 6 months later, she reached out. Her messages indicated renewed interest. She wanted to meet and talk, but something had shifted in him during those months. He no longer needed her validation. He had built a life that fulfilled him. He was open to reconnecting if it made sense, but he felt no desperation or anxiety about the outcome. When they met, she commented that he seemed different, more grounded, more certain, more attractive. This brings us to the third key insight. Anxiety and neediness telegraph through channels you cannot consciously control. Your body language shifts. Your tonality changes. Your energy becomes heavier. Women perceive these signals instantly, often without conscious awareness. They simply feel less attracted without knowing exactly why. You might say all the right words, but if your internal state broadcasts neediness, the words do not matter. Frame is a concept from social dynamics that describes who is reacting to whom. When you have strong frame, you remain emotionally centered while others react to you. When you have weak frame, you react emotionally to others while trying to manage their perception of you. Women test frame constantly, usually unconsciously. They create small challenges or emotional fluctuations to see if you remain stable or if you become anxious and reactive. If she takes longer to respond to texts, do you become anxious and double text? If she mentions another man, do you become jealous and interrogate? If she cancels plans, do you become hurt and seek reassurance? Each of these reactions demonstrates weak frame. You are reacting to her rather than remaining centered in yourself. She may not consciously think about frame, but she feels the difference between a man who remains stable and a man who becomes emotionally destabilized by her behavior. The mental trick that creates attraction is the development of such strong internal frame that her tests and fluctuations simply do not register as threats. You remain warm and engaged when she is responsive. You remain equally centered when she is distant or testing. This consistency communicates something powerful. It communicates that your value and emotional state do not depend on her validation. This is inherently attractive because it positions you as a rare man who has truly mastered himself. Most men never develop this capacity. They remain emotionally dependent on female validation throughout their lives. They need constant reassurance that they are attractive, successful, valuable. They monitor their partner's mood and adjust their behavior to maintain approval. They sacrifice their own preferences and boundaries to avoid conflict or withdrawal of affection. This creates relationships built on unspoken negotiation rather than genuine desire. The high-value man operates differently. He maintains his boundaries regardless of her response. He pursues his priorities even when she wants more attention. He remains emotionally stable when she tests or withdraws. This does not mean he is inflexible or unwilling to compromise. It means his willingness to adjust comes from generosity rather than fear. He chooses to accommodate when it serves the relationship, not when he fears losing her approval. Marcus Aurelius faced the weight of empire, surrounded by people who wanted to influence and manipulate him. He maintained his equilibrium through a simple recognition. External events and other people's opinions were outside his control. His internal state and his response to circumstances were within his control. He wrote extensively about this distinction because it was the foundation of his personal power. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable and focus entirely on your own development and responses, you access a form of strength that nothing external can diminish. This applies directly to attraction. You cannot control whether she finds you attractive. You cannot control her interest level. You cannot control her choices. Trying to control these things through your behavior is the source of your anxiety and neediness. The moment you release this futile attempt at control, the moment you accept that her attraction is her business and your development is yours, you step into the frame that women find magnetically attractive. The paradox intensifies here. You become most attractive when her attraction matters least to your sense of self. Not because you have built elaborate mental defenses or convinced yourself you do not care, but because you have genuinely built a life so fulfilling that romantic connection enhances it, without being necessary for it. You enjoy her company when it happens. You prefer connection when it flows naturally, but you do not need it to feel complete. This is not easy to develop. It requires genuine work on yourself. It requires building financial security so you do not need a partner for survival. It requires developing social connections so you do not need one person for all emotional support. It requires pursuing purpose and passion so you do not need validation to feel valuable. It requires physical development so you feel confident in your own skin. It requires all the work that most men avoid because it is difficult and takes time. But this is precisely why it creates attraction. The man who has done this work is rare. Most men remain stuck in patterns of seeking validation, adjusting behavior based on female response, outsourcing their happiness to romantic connection. The man who has broken free of these patterns stands out instantly. His energy is different. His stability is palpable. Women perceive this immediately and respond with heightened attraction. Here is your practical application. Starting today, implement a 30-day practice. Every time you feel the urge to contact her to seek reassurance, to adjust your behavior based on her response, pause. Take 3 conscious breaths. Ask yourself whether this action comes from genuine desire to connect or from anxiety about losing her approval. If it comes from anxiety, do not take the action. Redirect that energy into something that builds your own life. Build a list of activities that fulfill you independent of romantic connection. Physical training, professional development, creative projects, social connection with friends, solo adventures, intellectual growth. When you feel the pull towards seeking her validation, choose one of these activities instead. Over time, you will notice the anxiety decreasing. You will notice yourself genuinely caring less about her specific response. You will notice her attraction increasing as your neediness decreases. This is not about playing games or pretending not to care. This is about genuinely shifting your internal locus of control from external validation to internal development. You are training yourself to find satisfaction and meaning from sources you control, rather than sources you do not. This is the essence of Stoic practice applied to modern relationships. Track your emotional state in a simple journal. Note when you feel anxious about her responses. Note when you feel tempted to seek reassurance. Note when you successfully redirect that energy into self-development. Over 30 days, you will see patterns emerge. You will see your baseline anxiety decrease. You will see your genuine outcome independence increase. And you will likely see her interest increase proportionally as you stop needing it. The transformation happens at the identity level. You shift from being a man who needs female validation to feel valuable to being a man who knows his value, independent of any external confirmation. This is not arrogance. This is quiet certainty. You know what you bring. You know what you have built. You know your worth. Her recognition of it is pleasant but not necessary. Her rejection of it is her loss but not your problem. When you embody this state authentically, attraction becomes natural rather than forced. You stop trying to create it through behavior and tactics. You simply exist in a way that naturally generates it. Women respond to your energy. They feel the difference between the man who needs their approval and the man who is complete without it. They instinctively move toward the latter and away from the former. This is the mental trick. It is not a trick. It is the hardest work you will ever do. It is building yourself into a man who genuinely does not need any specific woman's validation because his life is full and his sense of self is secure. When you achieve this, attraction stops being something you create and becomes something that simply happens around you as a natural consequence of who you have become. The journey requires honesty with yourself about where you currently operate from neediness versus abundance. Most men lie to themselves about this. They claim outcome, independence, while their behavior reveals desperate attempts to control her. Perception and response. True transformation requires admitting where you actually are and committing to the work required to shift it. You will face setbacks. You will catch yourself falling back into old patterns of seeking validation. You will feel the pull of anxiety when she does not respond as you hoped. This is normal. The practice is not perfection. The practice is catching yourself, recognizing the pattern, and choosing differently. Over time, the new pattern becomes automatic. Outcome independence becomes your default state, rather than something you have to consciously maintain. The relationships that form from this place are entirely different. They are not built on neediness and negotiation. They are built on genuine desire and mutual enhancement. She is not there to fill a hole in you. You are not there to fill a hole in her. You come together because you enjoy the connection, not because you need it to feel complete. This is the foundation of lasting attraction and genuine partnership. But it all starts with the mental shift, the recognition that her attraction is not something you create through behavior modification. It is something that emerges naturally when you stop needing it. The paradox resolves when you understand that trying to be attractive guarantees you will not be. Simply being a man who has built himself into someone of genuine value guarantees you will be. If this resonated with you, I want you to do something. Leave a comment below describing one moment where you caught yourself seeking validation and chose to redirect that energy into self-development instead. Share your experience. Your story might be exactly what another man needs to hear to begin his own transformation. And if you found value in this, subscribe to this channel. We are building a community of men committed to genuine self-mastery rather than manipulation tactics. The path forward is clear. Stop trying to control her attraction. Stop adjusting your behavior based on her responses. Stop seeking validation from external sources. Start building a life so fulfilling that romantic connection enhances it without being necessary for it. Start developing genuine outcome independence through consistent investment in yourself. Start becoming the kind of man who naturally attracts because he has stopped needing to attract. This is Stoic truth, where silence becomes strength